morning and welcome to Rising. We have a marvelous show for you today here at Hill TV. Hello, Briahna.
Hello, Robby. It's always a pleasure.
All right, what are we talking about this morning?
Well, breaking news this morning, NBC News reports that the FBI is currently searching President Biden's Rehoboth Beach home for classified documents. Let's take a look.
Mika, that's absolutely right. According to three sources familiar with this matter, FBI agents, as we speak, are searching President Biden's Rehoboth Beach home for classified documents. This comes, of course, after there have been a discovery of a number of batches of documents at his think tank here in Washington and also at his home in Wilmington, Delaware.
This comes just after a Wall Street Journal report that the FBI also searched the president's former office at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement back in November. This is all in addition to a 12-hour search of another Biden home in Wilmington, Delaware, back on January 20th.
As the president's own legal woes mount, allies to his son, Hunter, are aiming to set up a legal fund for him to beef up his team of lawyers as he prepares to mount a defense against a cascade of federal investigations and congressional inquiries. According to the union leader, Hunter Biden's legal debt is said to be in the millions, and he's not been able to sell those paintings he was working on for as much money as anticipated. So it's hard out there for a presidential Nepo baby.
The shade is real. Look, Biden, Biden, to, I guess you might say his credit, has always been one of the less affluent senators in Congress, did not enrich himself in illegal ways, it seems, at least to the extent that other people in Congress have. He very famously got help, I believe, from President Biden paying for his deceased son's medical bills, something that he
really?
used, something. He used that anecdote to demonstrate how much he empathizes with people who need healthcare reform, even though he is, of course, absolutely not going to provide said healthcare reform. So, I'm not surprised that there's some, finagling going on right now to figure out how to get his ducks in a row in order to meet these legal challenges, both his son's legal challenges and whatever issues. Well,
and I imagine it is challenging, even. It's got to be messy for him if Joe Biden wanted to just give money to Hunter Biden to help him with his defense. I mean, that is going to raise flags in and of itself. Joe Biden, is facing, again, scrutiny over this document stuff, doesn't want to face scrutiny at all, doesn't want to face any possible investigation, so has to keep Hunter at arm's length, even though it's quite clear that he cares for his son and he's worried about his son and, wants to help him. Yeah. So Hunter's kind of on his own and, has to look into raising a legal defense fund. Which is something other people have done, but then, who are you taking the money from? That can, it can be a predicament.
What do you make of the discourse around the new troves of documents that seem to pop up anywhere anybody looks? I've heard some people argue, who are familiar with the intelligence agency, that some of the flippantness with which we have kind of started to discuss this. Well, there's documents everywhere. Everyone seems to have documents. It's because they've overclassified these documents, and it's not really a huge lapse in judgment or a personal responsibility. But I have heard some security experts say, well, when you're trained in the handling of classified documents, you are trained not to be as careless as so many people now have demonstrated that they've been, and that these lessons are drilled into you about the proper handling, that you immediately track and trace everything that's been provided to you that's in your possession, the way you would handle kind of a nuclear football, and that really this is a more significant breach, even if there are now multiple people who have been exposed as having breached.
I don't buy that at all.
Really?
I don't buy that at all. That sounds like deep state covering for itself. Say, oh yeah, no, we're so careful because you're in a different mindset. This is nuclear secrets. This is the peasants can't be trusted this stuff, so we're so careful and we're automatic and robotic about it. Filing all these classified papers away. I don't believe that for a second. I think it is the case that they just classify way too much stuff, and you can't. And who's the they here? That you're trained to handle classified materials very carefully. Joe Biden, members of Congress, cabinet secretaries. These are all political. These aren't secret agents. These are political figures. These are people who got more vote than the other guy in an election. Some of them are terrible people and liars and et cetera. I don't believe they're. So I'm not saying So clearly they're not going to be careful with documents anyway. But no one has yet said, here is the document that was misplaced, and this was really dangerous and scary for X reason. No one has been able to do that. They'll say they're not doing that because, you got to let the investigation proceed. It's too early. But I am going to remain skeptical. I am going to say this is a nothing burger until I am told exactly what it was that was so precious and so secret it couldn't be stored, like in Joe Biden's beer cooler or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's something...
Or at Mar-a-Lago, to be clear. That was all really stupid, too.
Yeah, there's something to be said about this argument that, Mike Pence having documents really, messed everything up for Donald Trump because suddenly there was this nice distraction in Joe Biden, and that somehow it was Mike Pence's fault. Some conservatives are mad at Mike Pence for kind of voluntarily taking a look around his own offices and finding something in a way that damns the Republican, and it's a both and. But I think there's something to be said for an investigation happening for all of these members and former members of Congress, because it does seem like almost everybody is implicated in this. And at that point, if everybody has a classified document on hand, what does that really mean about any of it?
Right. I don't think it means it. What it means is that the people who make that designation want to shield themselves from accountability from the American people. They don't want these forms read. They just don't want. They have a knee-jerk, don't hold us accountable kind of attitude. Don't look too closely at what we're doing. It's not your business. It's our business. That's their view. And of course, that's wrong because it is our business because they work for us. Public employees work for the American taxpayers, the American citizens, the people in this country. And that's not the attitude that we find out time and time again that these federal bureaucracies are operating. They're serving their own interests. They claim they're serving national security interests, but they're actually serving the interests of growing and expanding the influence of their bureaucracy and doing what's right for their own employees, including in how they network to tech companies. We find out how they're talking to social media companies, how they're limiting the scope of permissible discourse. And if they're doing that, then of course they're classifying everything so that you can't read it. That's their approach.
Well, there was an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday by Philip Bump called "The GOP Effort to Equate Biden and Trump on Classified Documents is Working," seeming to lament the fact that there is, the critique of Trump is so diminished by the critique of Biden now. And there was a poll that asked, if you view documents and the public views documents, the documents issue as concerning. With respect to Biden, it looks like about 30% say yes, just a little bit more say yes with Trump, that it's very concerning. And it's basically equal between Biden and Trump, the number of people who think it's either somewhat or very concerning. So it does seem to be somewhat of a wash, which, I
think that's fair. I think it is a wash.
I think it is worth pointing out that the reason that the Trump thing blew up the way it did and the reason why there was a raid was because he wasn't complying with the investigations. He wasn't turning over the documents that had been requested, and that's why it became such a spectacle. However, Biden stepped in it by saying nobody should be president who could be this irresponsible with documents. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but whatever overly strong statement he made, he got out over his skis, and now he's having to pay the consequences of losing all of the political high ground on this one. Right.
Maybe Trump should have made that. The argument he kind of landed on is that I can magically declassify things by thinking about it, which isn't true. But he should have just called out the FBI and the deep state. Said, look, they classify everything. There's nothing state secrets in here, and the whole thing is rigged against you and against me. That's what he should have said. Yeah. He didn't really make that case.
There's time. Trump is a dexterous man who knows how to pivot to an argument when convenient. You got to give him credit for those rhetorical talents.
All right. Well, what's up later in the show, Briahna?
Well, writer Matt Thomas joins. We'll discuss why midterm data could spell potential doom for New York Democrats in 2024. Plus, we'll get into polling showing more and more Americans believe the U.S. is providing too much support to Ukraine. You won't want to miss that. Next, I'll tell you what's on my radar today, so stick around.